on
Okay.
Facebook, and this is the first Kings of the New Earth interview that I'm doing today, and it's with a really special man. If you don't know him, his name's Raymond Powell, and he's the founder of CoGov.Tech and Protocol.love. And I just learned about his work recently, and I wanted to share it with my community because, well, many different reasons, but definitely because I believe we are seeding a lot of change in the world, and we need heart-centered leadership on all levels if we are actually going to change things in the world. So I'll give you a moment to share that.
Yeah, I'm
And
sharing it now. Thank you so much, Lauren, for having me on. I
yeah,
didn't know I was the
reasons,
first.
but definitely because
I didn't know there it was. There was the echo you were talking
yeah,
about. That's taken care of. But yeah, I didn't know I was the first, and I'm honored and thank you.
yay.
The short time I've known you, I'm just very, very impressed with the work you're doing, and obviously, um, I'm on board to learn so much more about the work you're doing. So I'm glad I'll
Awesome. Yes.
too.
Yeah, we have a beautiful collaboration going on.
Yeah, indeed.
Amazing. So for people who don't, well, I guess my first question is just like, why do we need heart-centered leadership right now?
Well, I mean, I guess sometimes a little bit controversial, but usually I like to, I end up framing this in terms of the masculine and feminine. And
Mhm.
of course, I'm not talking about gender there, right? Every being is a mixture of masculine and feminine energetics in the way I look at it. And I notice a lot of other people do look at it that lens. And that lens doesn't necessarily work for everybody. So it's an interesting conversation there too. But I think with the earth as a whole has been on this kind of masculine journey, like at least the human race on earth has been on this masculine journey for like 10 or 15,000 years where kind of every culture talks about like maybe the fall from the garden or you know, when we started seeing ourselves as separate from nature, from the earth,
Yeah.
from all that is. That moment we were in a very kind of like an almost an adolescent kind of like vision quest to go out and see how powerful we could be in the world and push our
Mhm.
limits of our own survival. And we are at the brink now. We are standing on the precipice of going over a cliff, obviously, as a species. So we've pushed ourselves that far. Our vision quest is complete. Yes, we now understand that how
But
much
we
life.
haven't, lived successfully in space yet.
Oh, well, okay. Well, you know, this is the masculine, right?
Yes.
This is the
Yeah.
masculine.
Always pushing for more,
Right. And so
striving for more.
lest we ever ignore that masculine drive and pretend that it's not good. It has its place, certainly. But at this point on this planet, we have achieved as much as we can in that masculine energetic. And it's time to
Mhm.
come home to the village. It's time to come home to the community. It's time to come home to our women and children. You know, that's for all of us. That doesn't just mean men, of course. So, but
Yeah.
the way we're running society, it's time to us return home a little bit, return to grace. I was going to write a book in
Mm.
2007 or something. And that was what I was going to call it. But
I love that.
answer your question.
Yeah. So, the reason that it's important to return, it sounds like reestablishing feminine balance with
That's
the
right.
overly masculine way of doing things, and especially like what's going on right now with racial oppression and
Yeah.
inequality, and obviously our whole government is
Oh,
collapsing. Like, I don't know,
there's a lot of
it seems
really,
like it's collapsing.
yeah, yeah, it does.
The systems are collapsing, and so I feel like this gives rise for heart-centered leaders, new earth leaders, visionaries, and people who just like care about people on a just a fundamental level. And I think what you're speaking to is just like the masculine drive has been pushing us, you know towards this quest of achievement. And then I think the big joke is like, ha ha, there, you didn't actually really achieve anything if you destroyed the planet that you're living on. And so it does take this like slowing down and consideration of all the parts.
That's right.
um
A nurturing and a
mhm.
holding, and you know all of that. You know, for people who are in the masculine energetic, that applies at all levels. You know, that applies within our psycho-spiritual existence. It applies within our physical body, in our one-on-one relationships, and you know, socioeconomics is really just one-on-one relationships at
Mhm.
scale, right? It's lots of one-on-one relationships, meeting lots of other one-on-one relationships, meeting lots of one-on-one other one-on-one relationships. And so we're all connected, and we
Yeah.
all need to start looking for ways to start nurturing ourselves, our societies, our communities, the earth itself, and all life on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this brings me to CoGov.tech, which you're a founder of, and Protocol.love, and it's creating systems and structures for this new world to take place. And so I'm just like wondering, like, what is the new way of being? What is the new earth? Like, what are we stepping into? Like, what's even possible here when we have new systems and structures in place?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the possibility is exactly what we talked about, that we return home, that we create a community we want to live in, on a planet we want to live in, that we focus on the needs of people and meeting those needs and healing the wounds. Racism, a wound that this country is haunted by, with the way, you know, we enslaved blacks in the early history of this country, and the way we enslaved and destroyed the native culture that was here when the Europeans came. You know, these healings need to happen, and this is such a prevalent time, and that's becoming so obvious. We like to pretend we're civilized in a lot of ways, far
Mm-hmm.
beyond the civilization that we are. And until we do
Yeah.
that healing and that nurturing of ourselves in that way, we can't quite call ourselves civilized. And
Yeah. If you guys are feeling that at home, give us a little like, a little heart, a little love, hit the little share button if you're loving this discussion.
yeah,
Because I think it needs to be heard far and wide. So yeah, that healing of the wound that needs to take place, right? It's just like, it's really hard for me to understand internalized hatred to the extent that it is externalized.
mm,
Like, it's really hard to understand how someone could go to the brink of like killing someone, just like it's just cold blood murder with no cause, with no provocation. And that's such a deep core wound. Like, it's a wounded masculine that is running rampant right now. It's in the United States and, you know, obviously beyond, but Canada's police officers have 0 civilian deaths by police. 0. They
I did
don't
say that.
kill their citizens.
Yeah, be a good place
And
to start.
yeah, yeah. And how do you systemize through CoGov.tech and like Protocol.love so that you can create these new infrastructures?
Right. Well, my piece is bringing that feminine embodiment into the technical space, the technical economy, and the technical governance systems that are all emerging, and that everybody's, you know, at least a lot of the people on Earth are fascinated with at this point, which is mostly
Mm-hmm.
emerging through blockchain channels, right? We talk about DAOs, and we talk about different forms of governance, and of course, inherent in things like Bitcoin and Ethereum is an economy. We have this new exchange mechanism called cryptocurrency, and so these ones that have been created thus far are actually quite centralized, and a lot of the people that are heavily embodied in that technology or involved in the scene, at least, have a hard time seeing that part, because it really does seem like it's providing the answers we need to rescale a way for people to get along on the planet. The problem is that the technology itself has some inherent centralizational aspects to it, even in Bitcoin, which is that the power centralizes with the miners. And anytime there's a centralization of power, there's corruption. That's
Yeah.
just I think that's something we're ready to admit as a
Yeah.
society. Like, whenever there is centralization of power, there is corruption, period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yep.
So centralizations within the technological space, we're seeing it. We're seeing Facebook and YouTube and Google being extremely powerful in the technological space. And they're very powerful players now in politics. They're very powerful players now. Facebook wants to start a cryptocurrency. They're huge economic players. They are huge players in sense making, which is the most important challenge we face right now as the species, is how do we make sense together in a way that creates unity and cohesion on a global scale,
Yeah.
right? And these are the
Yeah.
problems that we're set out to solve with Holochain and CoGov. And that means completely distributed agent-centric activity. So we're bringing sovereignty to your internet. We're bringing sovereignty to your internet experience, where you own your data. You are in control of your experience. And when you choose to do business or to get involved in an exchange with some other party or some other company on the internet, you are in fully empowered choice about that. You're not reading 6,000 page contracts that you just put I agree to because you don't have the time. I just want to use your service. I'm not going to read that, obviously. That kind of thing shows a power imbalance. It shows that they have more power to give you tools you need in your life than you are willing to be fully responsible in the engagement of the relationship with that tool. Right? That's a power imbalance. The average person does not have the time and space to engage in their technology at that fully empowered, fully sovereign way that they're going to read every line of that contract, which would be the responsible thing to do, right? So if we can create an environment where there's a more cohesion and we can remove that power imbalance, we know we've come a long way. And that's definitely something that we'll see be able to happen with the emergence of holochain. But what Protocol.love enables, using that platform of holochain that I've just been describing, is that it actually enables people to start up businesses, communities, chess clubs, governments, local governments, alternative governments, whatever it is. Anytime people come together to do things in group together, they have a shared mission and a shared work and shared contribution to a pool of resources that they're stewarding together. Protocol.love enables them to do that if they should so choose, with 100% vulnerable transparency.
Beautiful. So for those people who don't really know what vulnerable transparency could look like in commerce and business, what does that even mean?
Yeah, well, it's very precisely described in most slightly technical terms, but mostly everybody can understand it. Protocol.love is actually the URL, so you can just type that in and you go straight to it. Describes exactly what kind of things you would need to share with the world if you wanted to operate with complete vulnerable transparency, which means, by operating in that way, it disables your ability inherently to take power over others, right? So you don't even have the ability to do it just in case somebody on the team started feeling that way or started feeling tinges of that. The fact that it would be shared in those operations and those economic transactions and those decision-making processes that would shed light on that little thing, subtle thing happening, and to the world. And the feedback loop would be there right away, because as we could see in this day and age, everybody is very, very concerned and spending a lot of time analyzing what powerful people are doing in the world.
Yeah.
And so if we really want to look at what powerful people are doing in the world, vulnerable transparency enables that 100%. And that it doesn't just enable it, for certain powerful people, it's everybody. And I really believe that the reason that this is so powerful also is that by being able to see into the operations of what other organizations, what other individuals are doing, we can better align our actions in synchronicity and anti-rivalrous contractual relationship, right? Or anti-rivalrous cooperation, should we say.
Yeah.
And that's really the key. It gives us the holopticism, the ability to see much more information in the ecosystem in which we participate, so we can maximize our ability to be cooperative.
Yeah, so that all really makes sense to me as far as being transparent, but you put vulnerable in front of it, which makes it heart-centered, which makes it like really centered about humanity and kindness. And it's not just transparency for the sake of being transparent. It's like transparent for the sake of allowing your commerce to be seen, so that there is no hidden agenda and power play and power struggle and, getting to where we are now. But I'm wondering how you came up with like why vulnerable was the word that you chose to put in front of transparency.
Yeah. It's a great question. And I think the reason is that for those of us that may find ourselves to be operating from a more or heavily masculine energetic, we learn a lesson eventually that vulnerability is actually the most powerful way to operate in the world. But it takes some time to get there. And so as a species, if we want to operate in that way, in that more mature way, which is a more loving and kind way, I would go so far as to say, vulnerability is the answer to that. And and in within somebody's interpersonal, beingness, they may already be very vulnerable. And it's not necessarily the calling for everybody, but I think when we're talking about powerful masculine, engineering, economic transactions, these kind of things, the vulnerability is the part that allows that feminine to find its way into the system. Letting down your guard, putting down the sword. We are not, we can compete. Put down your sword. We can still compete because there's something good about competition. It does drive really interesting innovation. Let's make the world I'm going to be the best person making the world better than anybody else for all life on it. I'll be the best. Like, Trump. If we had a Trump, even somebody that goofball, right? But that was their job. That was their goal, was to make life awesome for everybody and really take it seriously to find out what that means to every individual on earth and create a system that works for them. Let's compete by all means. But let us not go so far that we want to see others lose so that we can win, right? That's where it crosses the line. And, especially at a time like this, this is so relevant to what's happening in the news right now. We have this guy sitting on top of a very powerful government, that is the United States of America, claiming the powers that he's been given long before he got there.
Right. I think we got a little pause here. Hopefully you can see me. We'll wait for the internet to come back. I think we lost Ray. We were in a very heated discussion about the powers that be, and hopefully Ray can pop back in here. So if you guys have any hearts, likes, loves, shoot me a little thumbs up. It does definitely help boost things. If you have any questions that you want to ask Ray when he gets back, definitely type those in and we'll see if he can hop back in here. So let's see. So close. So there's a lot going on in the world. And oh, here we go. Right. Yay. Awesome. Sorry, I figured if I held on long enough.
Good.
You just burnt us all up with your, impassioned fire. Yeah, I think someone said like a game show host is ruling, the world's largest military. And when you like really think about that, you're like, why is a old ex game show host in charge of the world's most powerful military? And that's a really scary thought.
Yeah, and here we are counting on them. What kind of he's clearly a masculine being, clearly charging forward with whatever he believes in and believing he's the greatest and the best. So let's hope that he is of the maturity to have any clue what is actually the greatest and the best for a vast majority of life on earth. And yes, you are asking the right question. Why have we created a system that puts so much power in one person's hands to make that we have to count on them in that kind of way? Why haven't we created a system that distributes power across all nodes and all communities and all resources in the world so that we can look for, algorithmically identify the best kind of flows in the system that really do work to meet needs and to nurture life?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like decentralizing power, but the powers that be do not want to be decentralized.
Yeah, they sure don't.
Yeah, so unfortunately, they can't think one generation in their future and see that their kids may not even have lives on Earth because of their actions.
Right.
They can't even think one generation down.
I'm hoping that it's more like they just haven't been asked to, right? And then I'm hoping that we're coming to the table right now where we're going to really ask them to answer that question for themselves. How is this all going? How is this plan going for you guys?
Right. It's like you're going to die. You're going to die with billions of dollars in your bank account, but you still are going to die. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you're immortal.
Right.
And they're acting as if richness makes them immortal. It's kind of like, oh, if I attain this certain amount of power on Earth, then I'm going to die with this power, this wealth. And it's like it doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of people that are very clear that if they can make it to 2050, they can actually live forever in their bodies. Right. I'm not sure I would want to do that, but it's an interesting idea.
Right.
You've got other guys like Ray Kurzweil, absolutely convinced they can live forever they can download their brain into a box and live forever, which seems to me to be a fundamental misunderstanding of the existence of life and consciousness. But maybe I'll find someday I'm misunderstood, but for now I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure about that.
Yeah. I'm going to stick to my skin. I kind of like it.
Right.
So, what was kind of like your personal journey and what brought you to this importance of bringing in the feminine principle into business?
Yeah, well, having done the journey of being extremely imbalanced towards the masculine, and perhaps I'm still working on a balance, and as I get older, and of course testosterone levels decrease, it's easier and easier to embody more feminine qualities as a man, right? That's just my personal journey, which is what we're talking about. And so that's probably part of it, but it's also a realization of what actual loving kindness was. For me, was kind of the most recent part of my journey.
Mm.
Realizing that I'd spent almost my entire life in kind of like a fight or flight, almost every second of every day. I'm not sure if
Oh my God, it's
you know,
exhausting.
yeah,
I'm not sure how you survived this long.
I know. And, doctors aren't either, honestly, when they look at my blood pressure, this, which is no question a cause, a symptom of the way I showed up in the world and the way the world treated me, how I showed up, right? Which was very strong, powerful, I'm going to have my way kind of guy who wasn't particularly impressed with the systems that he was presented with to participate in, And so it was very much a fight my whole life. And recently I experienced a retreat called Kapasana, which is kind of like a Vipassana. It's Kapasa and Kapasa man meets Vipassana, is what it's from. And it's a combination. There's a lot of meditation. It's noble silence for 11 days. There's a lot of yoga and yin yoga. But that experience on Maui, on a beautiful, the beauty and peacefulness I experienced during that 10 days was so far and above and beyond anything I'd ever experienced. That that was it was a transformational shift for me. And so while I had been talking about most of these concepts for several years now, and started writing about them very concisely around technical implementations 3 years ago, it wasn't really until I experienced that I was able to see this pattern and understand that how what we're doing is the embodiment of love in socioeconomics. That if love is the field that holds space for evolution to happen, that means that if that's true, that means that when we love something, we set it free. We hold space for its most natural evolution, and we support it, and we love it, and we watch the beauty of its growth and transformation. And understanding that concept of love and that view of love, and that is the act of evolving.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Right. And to look at that within yourself, within myself, in my psycho-spiritual realm, the way I can interpret the various things that may seem like, metaphysical, things that happen, that if I slow down, I will just allow myself to experience it rather than trying to control the experience, to define it, to wrap it into a box and explain what's happening. There's actually a lot more to be gleaned. And so that was the central pattern that I noticed. If I love myself the most, that's what I'll learn to do. If I love myself the most, I'll learn to say no to the things that don't resonate with me.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be mad about that. So when I see events happening in the world, when I see a socioeconomic system and a dollar currency that does not resonate with me, when I see my opportunity to get corporate jobs that does not resonate with me, it's always been easy for me to say no to those things, but it hasn't been easy for me to say no without an underlying energetic, without an underlying like anger about it. That's part of my personal journey there. But I think this pattern of love, of loving things and loving ourselves, is the opposite of control.
Yeah.
when we try to control others, when we try to control our place in society, we can try to control, we are doing the opposite of love.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're preventing evolution from happening, and we are stifling other people's sovereignty. Like we're just
Every time.
we're just stifling, and we're stifling our own evolution when we do that. We're just like preventing the natural order of things when we start to overly control and don't allow other people's freedom, rights, sovereignty, expression to happen. And I'm sure we've all experienced that in love relationships where like the more we hold on, the more we like try to control this person, the worse the relationship gets, right? And how much freedom that we feel inside when we let a person go, either, you know, literally like in a breakup, or just loosen our grip and our sense of control, and then we allow it to unfold the way it's meant to. Yeah. So, what would you say are action steps that men can take in their lives to start the healing process and embodying their true power and purpose in the world?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's such a big question. It's such an honor, to be asked that question. I can only speak from my personal experience, that in which I described some of, there's a lot of, and more men need this advice more than others, obviously, like certain advice, right? It's because there are a lot of men that are quite balanced and quite embrace their feminine side, right? So yeah. I can speak for the kind of guy that probably hasn't done so much of that, right? And so for me, that is like the phrase "in my body." I didn't know what that meant. I was around a lot of transformational circles and really high conscious people. And by the way, consciousness is not some woo-woo term, like a religious term. Consciousness to me literally is the ability of a being to understand the pattern it participates in. And a higher conscious being is somebody who's able to understand more complexity in those patterns. And hanging around a lot of higher conscious people, they would talk about being in their body, and I wouldn't know what they meant.
Yeah.
Interesting concept. Okay. Until recently, and so what I found myself during deep meditation was that I became a sensing organism of the universe itself. I certainly became a sensing organism of Mama Gaia. Like I was just a little tiny hair on Mama Gaia's body, sensing things, right? Just a little sensory organism. And then when I really centered myself and slowed myself down and felt into my body and experienced what it like to be in a body, deeply present, put all my energetic focus on being in a body, that I felt that openness of energetic truth flowing through me most rapidly, right? And so I guess another part of that advice this is also for probably intellectual masculine oriented guys, right?
Which many are.
Yeah. That there's two ways to connect to source. Stephen Cutler, did I get the name right? Cutler, I think, wrote a book recently, Finding Cloud 9. I hope I get it right. But he talked about the human potential movement and spirituality as kind of two tracks, right? And that he came down to it. They're both ways to connect to source. Like he's very much in the high adrenaline athletic scene, where you're talking about people doing amazing things that have never been done. A lot of the men, like jumping the highest, doing the most incredible, and they are channeling source. There's not a thought, there's no conscious thing happening. He talks about all this in the book, and how there's not a conscious thing happening. They're totally not present. Time slows down, everything, So that is connection to source. And I think a lot of men find themselves connecting in that kind of way most of the time. But what I found recently, of course, is that there's another way to connect to source, which is equally as powerful, if not more powerful, which is the stillness, which is the going in, which is the going deep, fully connecting with the body, fully nurturing my body in a way that allows me to connect with it. And in that was a new type of clarity and a new way of looking at things, and knowing how to get back to that state, of course, and being in practice to be able to achieve that state. It does feel like whereas the movement part is very masculine, energetic, of moving in the 3D world,
Yeah.
The stillness part is a very feminine energetic of sensing what's
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Yeah, it's
And
like going down and in is a little bit more of a foreign concept than going up and out. And the body is just more inherently feminine in its principle because it's everything that's changing, moving. It's just like it's just pure change. And the masculine really does crave kind of more unchanging stillness. And there's just so much wisdom in the body when we actually tune in and tap into it. And then we actually, if you go in enough, and I'm sure you experienced this in Kapasana, you actually, like you said, you had that awakening experience. Is like you feel consciousness resonant inside the body, like inside the cells. So it's like at some point they're not really separate, but it takes a certain awareness to really listen and go deep enough and feel that awareness and become somatically alive. And then it's like, then what's possible? It's like there's like a whole new world to explore, right? Like there's a
there
whole
is,
new territory of exploration when you awaken to your own body and
which
you're
is,
not
of
trying
course,
to escape, right?
of, of course. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a new journey for me, which is why I'm
Mm.
so excited about your program, obviously.
Yay.
This is what we're going to do more of, right? So
Yeah,
you tell me
absolutely.
whatever, but yeah, this is what
Yeah.
I'm in it for. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm super excited to have you on board. Raymond took the plunge. He enrolled in Kings of the New Earth, which launches next Thursday, June 11th. And and it's like I'm just humbled and honored because you are someone who, you know, just from everything that you said, you're so embodied, you're so awake, you're so aware, and then you kind of see like, well, there's still more to go. Like
Oh,
there's just
yeah,
another layer, there's another unraveling, there's more heart healing, there's and sometimes we all just need to be held in a container so that we can fully blossom and evolve into what we're meant to evolve into. And containers are sacred spaces for transformation,
yeah,
and then we get to commit to ourselves fully because we're always committed to other things.
yeah, yeah.
Like I find it easier to commit sometimes to work or to other people or to other agreements than to fully commit to myself.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a fact.
Yeah, so it's kind of like what happens when we are being held accountable
Yeah,
to show up to fully show up for ourselves.
absolutely. And yeah, the
Yeah,
kind of a container of experience, which seems like where we're headed. I've experienced those kind of containers, and they're super powerful.
yeah.
Transformational work. Yes, that container right there for anybody, men and everybody, who hasn't experienced the power of something that is deeply transformational in a group setting,
Mm,
right? So we have
yep.
that sense of accountability with other people we're in the program with. It's such
Mm-hmm.
a powerful awakening experience, because we
Yeah,
are tribal creatures, and to be in that tribe and to be witnessed and to be held by each other in that kind
mm,
of container is such a powerful thing. So looking forward to
yeah.
being there with you and the other men that are
Yes.
going to be working this time around.
Yeah, me as well. It's going to be really, really powerful. And we have such an amazing container already being built and amazing men um, already in. So it's super exciting. And so if anybody's interested, I dropped a link above. You can just hit the application process. And I want to finish with just I might have asked this in a different way, but what is your vision for the new earth? Like, what would it really look like?
All beings feeling fully empowered to
Mm,
have a say in the things that matter to them
hmm
and that affect their lives.
hmm
So that doesn't mean you wake up one day and you're president of the world, obviously, but you
Yeah.
have a clear path to having your voice heard in all the systems that matter to you. So that means whatever, it's starting at the youngest of ages, of course. I mean, we could be doing these kind of um, social coordination skills can be learned in school by doing them.
hmm
Very much, and there's already things in place. One of the founders of Holochain, his name is Art Brock, and he founded an educational program exactly for that kind of thing. So, but anyway, the object being that every citizen does have that fully empowered opportunity to have a say in the things that matter, and to
mm
the extent they're passionate, to the extent that they become over time more and more knowledgeable on the subject that is affecting them, that they're so concerned about, that affects others as well, that their voice can become more and more heard. And there aren't invisible barriers, right? There aren't
Mm-hmm.
the glass ceilings for women. There aren't the racial divides or the perceived ones or all of those things, right? That we
Yeah.
don't have to deal with those kind of things. It is only a matter of our passion and expertise and the recognition with our peers. And we can do that by getting into coherence groups, and we can
Mm.
organize coherence groups at scale using digital tools.
Awesome. So how do people get involved in your projects?
Yeah, go to Protocol.love. That'll get you there. CoGov.tech and Protocol.love are right now going to largely the same site. That won't always be true, so it depends when you're watching this. But yeah, there are ways to get involved, to contact me. Facebook is a great way to reach out if you want. Collaborative Governance Technologies on Facebook. I'd love to talk to you there.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me and taking time out of your day. I feel like this was really powerful and really potent. And I hope those who view at home just got something out of it and are feeling really inspired for this New Earth movement and just new systems and technologies that can be put into place to empower ourselves, empower the voices, and build the Earth that we really want to live in.
We are all kings and queens of the new Earth. So
Fuck yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
That
what
makes
makes the new Earth, because we are all kings and queens.
exactly. Yeah. And people claiming that for themselves,
Absolutely.
right? It's just you are a sovereign being, and the powers that be cannot take what's essential. They can't take your true self and your light. And we have to just keep going with that.
Mm. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah. Well, I'll be seeing you soon. And anybody who has questions, like we'll be keeping track, in the replay. So hit hashtag replay if you're watching replay, and we'll answer the questions. So
Awesome.
awesome. Have a good
Thank you so
evening.
much.
Thank you. All
Mhm.
right.
Bye.
Bye.